Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Tim McGinnis. I'm the Managing Director of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, SCARS, a government-registered crime victims assistance and crime prevention nonprofit organization based in Miami, Florida, and Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, as well as with offices and affiliates and partners in more than 60 countries around the world. This special conversation is going to allow us to talk with individual scam victims. This is part of a series, so we will be presenting each individual interview, and it gives us an opportunity to talk to scam victims openly, candidly, full transparency. We will not be editing their commentary. We will be presenting it whole, unedited, and complete. What we're talking about today are three topics. The first is to try and get a better feel for the victims around the world, different countries and cultures, about their scam experience itself. We'll talk for a few minutes about that. Then we'll move on to their experience after the scam ended. What was that like for them individually, personally, and also in the context of the country or culture within which they live? And then lastly, to explore a little bit about the challenges of helping, supporting scam victims in different countries and cultures, the barriers that are in the way, the challenges, the opportunities, and to the extent that victims can find support services within those countries. Thank you for joining us. In the interest of preserving your privacy, we're not going to mention you by name. I will just call you Miss South Africa, if that's okay.
That's right.
So, beauty pageant winner, Miss South Africa.
Oh, lovely.
22. So what I wanted to talk to you about briefly today is, as you know, on our show today, we're doing a kind of a survey around the world of what it's like both to be a victim and what that experience is like in various countries and cultures around the world. I know that you live in South Africa, and then briefly talk about ways perhaps in which South African victims can be better served and helped to transition from their experience of being a crime victim to recovery, and potentially how they can advocate for other victims in their countries, South Africa. So perhaps to begin, you can tell us a little bit about your scam experience. How long has it been since it started, or since it, ended? How long has it been since it ended?
It's since 2020.
How long?
2020.
Okay, so about 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So could you tell us a little bit about what happened to you, how you got lured into the scam and what it was all about, just briefly?
Everybody was talking about Tinder. And I decided to just have a look, because I'm actually so clueless about what goes on in the internet. And I saw a guy that he was dressed very well. And I thought, oh, well, just send him a like Tinder do. And we started talking, and then I found out that he is an architect in Fremesheim, Mossel Bay. Because I decided I don't want somebody too near to me so that they can stand on my doorstep in an hour's time, because I
Right.
don't. But I also don't want them to be too far away that I won't be able to meet the person, because I don't plan on talking to somebody for the rest of my life and never see them. So that was fine to me, that he was in South Africa, in Cape Town, 1,500 kilos from where I am, and that's where it started. He was, if I read about how victims were, this was totally actually the opposite. He was divorced, but he was friends with his wife because they co-parented their children. His children were already, I think the one was finishing off with what we call our matric, and the other one was already studying. And we started, he phoned me 3 times a day. The only thing that, and he was very, very professional about it, is whether he first wanted to know more about me before we have a formal video chat. That was fine with me, because he phoned me and he would let me know that he can't speak to me now, he's going to a meeting. And he was always the gentleman that I saw in the suit. And then one Saturday morning, about 7:15, he sent me a message and he said to me, and he had this pedigree French dog, the ugliest thing I've ever seen, but everybody likes their dogs their own way. 7:15 in the morning, he sent me a message and he said to me, he's the guy who works with him is on Johannesburg International Airport. He's on his way to where I am. And I must please have a certain amount of money ready for him, because he needs money to buy food for the dog.
Out of the blue, without any advance warning about this?
Without any advance warning about it. My first question to him was, you knew I wasn't very far from the airport. Why didn't you fly up to meet me? And he said to me, no, he had to have a Zoom, let's call it a Zoom meeting with his company in Italy, and because he was on a contract in South Africa, and the other guy came up. And I said to him, but you know what? You have a pedigree dog, but you can't buy food for it. You are 15 kilos from Mossel Bay, because I've already started, the moment I started talking to him.
Isn't that a bit of a luxury area in near Cape Town?
Yes, Mossel Bay is big, and George was about 30 kilos or 50 kilos from where he is. So there's no excuse for him to get out in the car, go and buy a small bag of dog food, and then that's for the weekend. And I even, what I did is I copied to him the opening hours and how many spots were in Mossel Bay.
Okay.
And
so can you advance forward a little bit faster? Did you ever meet the guy at the airport?
No, he never, I switched off communication with him immediately.
Okay.
That's
So the scam ended.
evident.
So the scam ended. And what was your experience after the scam ended? What was it like to come to the realization that this had all been just lies and deceptions?
It is emotionally, it's a big shock. It's a picture that you see of somebody, and he suits the profile that you would like to meet and that you would like to trust most of all.
Right.
And that's the thing that they prey on, is the trust and the emotional bond they have with you, because you find you have similar interests and whatever. So for me, emotionally, it was terrible. I came out of a very bad divorce, and I really thought, well, this guy is different. He's so honest with me. And it was just nice to have somebody didn't lie to me, and I didn't have to lie to him either. So the emotional part was terrible. It was 6 months that I spoke to him, and where in December of 2020, I just couldn't take it anymore. I considered suicide. And
we're glad that you did not.
oh, I'm very glad. Fortunately, my first reaction always is to go to Jesus. And I spent many, many nights on my knees praying for just giving me a purpose for the reason I had to make this scam. Because then I started reading up on it, and I found out, but this is a scammer. This is not the person I see in the photo, is not the person that I was talking to.
Had you talked to him on the phone?
Yes, 3 times a day.
And he had a South African accent?
No, he had a foreign accent, and
would you say it was African or some of?
No, it sounded more like Italian type of thing, because I asked him if he had Italian roots. It sounded more like that.
Yeah.
Unless it was, in my opinion, afterwards, a very educated African who was in South Africa for a long time, maybe, and went through the university, and then he became.
And as we know, Italy has hundreds of thousands of Nigerian immigrants.
Yeah, but
some go from Italy back to Nigeria and get involved.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to be a scam victim in South Africa? What that experience was like? You reported it to the police?
No. It's humiliating. It's I think the first thing that I thought was, I'm an intelligent person. I was in a senior position at my work. How can a person fall for all these lies? Open-eyed. And I think that is the problem with a lot of victims. The humiliation and the feeling of being stupid is the main reason why they don't report it. Of
course, they are not stupid. They're just manipulated.
Yeah, they're just humiliated, and we are human. And our nature is to trust other people. We are there. If you go into a police station, for instance, and you talk to a person you want to report it, you trust that person. And that is what the scammer feeds off, the trust that they create with you. And
right.
And that was heavy for me. I really searched a lot to find out who can I speak to just relate it to me, and that's where I landed with a group that I was with. And
however, let's go back. You did not report to the local police. Was there for that? No,
I reported it. I started searching on the place where they said they were building a hospital. And I found that it's just a small settlement that was created many years ago, where there's a colored community that stays there now. They had a nursery, and I found the owner of the nursery. And she said to me, no, there is no building going on there. So I immediately, all on that day that he asked me for the money for the food, that I found that out. So because then I went into overdrive.
Right, but why did you not report to the local police?
Because it was such a stupid thing that happens. I never thought of it as a crime. And I think that is what victims also think. Being scammed and not being just drop out of the scam is not reportable to the police. It's not necessary to report it to the police.
You understand now that it is in fact a crime.
It is a crime. And I think that is why I believe in my heart and from what I see, that there are actually in a workplace, a person scamming a victim, victimizing that person so much, and that none of us, and I was in an open plan office, that none of us realized this is a scammer and he's actually sexually extorting victims for his own gain. And it never went to the police.
But see, one of the things that I hear in your voice is that you still fixate on the singular scammer, when in fact, almost no scams are done by a single scammer. They're all done by teams.
They are. If you start messaging with a person, especially on messages, the guy that I spoke to every time had the same voice. But if he sent messages, I could see
Yes.
very clearly that it's not the same person I'm talking to. Because
Okay.
what happened is we will talk about, say, for instance, in South Africa, about a big rugby game between South Africa and New Zealand.
Right.
When they take over a shift, there's no time to give feedback on what was being said.
Right.
So this guy doesn't know. And he starts asking you from where his scripts is starting now. And
Right.
then but where did I miss something that this guy can't remember? But, he's such a nice guy. Let's get on with it. And then I said, but you know, you're a blonde today. Did you forget what we were talking about? But that's the thing is, as long as they can manipulate the conversation, they are safe.
It's funny because just a week ago, I was talking to a scam victim in Mauritius, on the island of Mauritius, only to find out that he, in fact, had been scammed in a cryptocurrency scam, but he worked for a contact or a call center where they do scamming. And that there were 200 employees in his call center who were scammers. Mauritius is one of those countries that is largely controlled by corruption and criminal elements. So it's impossible to have them shut down. We pass the information along. Before we end this conversation, because we're running out of time, what do you think we could do better? We could do better to help victims of financial fraud in South Africa?
Financial fraud for me is
all of scams are financial fraud.
They are eventually, but you know, and I'm not a racist. The cultural upbringing of different groups, such a nature that if I will ask somebody, please lend me $100, I'll give it back to you by Friday, they will do that. And that is how many of the cultural group people are being scammed. Because I was speaking to a lady a while ago last year, or the beginning of this year, where she said to me, this guy was so sick, he showed her his sick mom.
So what you're saying, I need to interrupt you because we're running out of time. But what you're saying is partly it's an educational need.
It's definitely.
And obviously it's a worldwide cultural education problem. Yeah. Scammers in the United States, there are scammers in Latin America. But the good news, of course, is that in 2021, more than 540,000 scammers were arrested. So enforcement is doing its job, but it's more of a cultural change issue, is what I'm saying. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And a trust in the police force in South Africa. If you, I know they are very good police officers, but I also know there are a lot of that's corrupt. And especially in the, may I say it, in the Black and colored communities, the police doesn't have all the support, all the trust. And I think that's why that it is not reported to the police, because police has never advocated or shown evidence
Okay.
that
Of course, in South Africa, you have the National Police Force,
yeah.
have a cyber crimes unit, and they also have their Hawks unit, which is incorruptible. And we encourage every victim in South Africa to report there. So I would like to thank you for joining me today. We're out of time, but
Okay, it's a pleasure.
it's been a lot of very useful information, and thank you for sharing your story with us today. So,
Oh, it's a pleasure.
all right. Thank you again, and thank you for letting us record this.
You are more than welcome, and thank you for interviewing me.
You're very welcome. I want to thank you for joining us today for this incredible interview and the insights and information about how scams work, the experience that victims face after the scam, and insights into ways in which both SCARS and society as a whole can make the process easier for victims and present better options for their emotional recovery after these events occur. This video is copyright 2022, Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, Inc. Thank you for joining us. For more information about SCARS, visit againstscams.org. To learn more about scams and scammers, visit romancescamsnow.com. If you're insisting on looking at scammer photos, visit scammerphotos.com. And of course, to report scams, report them to the Federal Trade Commission, to the FBI through ic3.gov, and on the SCARS portal, anyscam.com. Thank you for joining us today.